Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello, and welcome again to the Clarity Advisor Show. And when you're leading a team, it can be a challenge when you're a young leader. And it's a challenge to lead a sales team. And it's a challenge if you're leading volunteers. Well, my guest today, Nolan King, is doing all three. He was the youngest district sales coordinator in all of Aflac and is now the youngest regional sales coordinator in all of Aflac. He comes to us from Central Florida with a lot to tell us about how to overcome that triple challenge. Please help me welcome Nolan King.
Hey, glad to be on with you today, Ken. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. No, we appreciate that, Nolan. And yeah, tell us about this triple challenge that you face being a young leader of volunteers. Talk to us a little bit about how Aflac is structured and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all of us are not technical employees of Aflac. We're all appointed by Aflac. It's a carrier appointment, if you will. So, we're all 1099. So, most of us come from a W-2 background where we work for a company. They take out the taxes for us right there. We punch in and out of a clock. Somebody's telling you where to be, when to be there, and how to be there. But with us, we are, as you alluded to, a volunteer army because we're all 1099s. We don't punch in and out of a clock. Nobody can technically make us do anything. So it is a challenge, but it also presents great opportunity. And I think it truly is a testament to the buy-in of your team when they follow you and they don't technically have to.
Absolutely. Now you've moved up quickly, being the youngest district coordinator and now youngest regional sales coordinator. Talk to us a little bit about where you were and how you were able to get those promotions and grow the team.
Yeah, so great question. So first and foremost, had an incredible opportunity to be surrounded by great people as I was entering the business world. So I actually started my career with Aflac as a college intern. So met my mentor, boss, if you will. She'll kill me for calling her my boss on here because she hates that word. But met her in a mock interview while still in college, and got talked into doing an internship with Aflac. So I did that as an intern in May of 2017. Upon graduating, came back, worked for Aflac for about 6 months. Where she saw, something bigger in myself, I guess the ability to lead other people, but I think also work ethic and skill set and all those different things, and moved into a district sales coordinator role at 22, which was January of 2019, where I started my leadership journey, if you will, started building and growing a team. Had the privilege to move down to Florida in September of 2020, where she now runs the state. Now serving as the regional sales coordinator, where I lead a team of districts, team of agents, all of those different things. But I think one of the biggest things and how it was so quickly was just being a sponge. I said blessed to be surrounded by great mentors in the career, but that also takes, in my opinion, seeking that other things and seeking to want to grow, to want to learn, to want to study, to want to invest in yourself, to grow something for now and for the future. So surrounding yourself with the right people, but also asking the right questions and being open to coaching and feedback. I think at times, sometimes we don't like tough love, but tough love sometimes is good for yourself, and putting yourself around people who know the best way to enhance your performance as well is a big crucial thing in success and getting yourself in positions that you want to be in eventually.
Absolutely. Now, how big is the team and what geography are you covering right now?
Yeah. So, our team has about 35 to 40 people on our team. So we have 4 district sales coordinators. So they lead a team. So I kind of run the area, if you will, and do some different things now than just leading. But also, so we have about 40 people on our team, 4 district sales coordinators, and we cover really all of Central Florida. So if you know anything about Florida geography, we come down close to Tampa, up through Crystal River, Ocala, all of Orlando. So it's a big area that we cover here in Central Florida.
Right. Okay. Well, I'd mentioned the 3 challenges. I want to break down and go into some of each of those. So let's start with young leader. So you start in college as an intern and come in, and by the time you're 22, you're already leading a district. Talk about some of the challenges that you faced. I'm presuming you've got people older than you on your team. How has that worked, and what have you done to be successful in leading those folks?
Yeah, it's funny. I just sat on Friday in a leadership development, and they were talking about the different demographics and the stereotypes around different generations, and really the perspective that they bring. First off, the biggest thing for myself was, again, you talk about being around great people. Father, grandfather, parents. I come from a strong background of people who had a true passion and care for other people. So it was just naturally something that was ingrained in me. I think if you look at the perception of coming in as a young person, it's, my generation, one of the stereotypes is we care about ourselves and ourselves only. We're very opinionated and all these other things, but I've always been told I have an old soul, if you will. So blessed to be raised by other people like that. But one of the very first things coming in, I remember before I took that promotion to start leading people, I told a coworker of mine, like, I see it down the road because, I'm young, right? Everybody that works in this office is older than me. So like, why would they believe in it? And I remember she told me, and it was a big impact on me. Shout out Cassandra Martin, if she's listening. She said, I don't care how old a person's is. If they truly care about me and they know what they're talking about, then I'd follow them. And so from that day forward, I'm like, all right, I think I can make an impact on people in a positive way. I know I care about people. I know I'm good at these tactical things. So coming in, it's just really building relationships. Like, I think everything to do with leadership is building relationships, and there's always that common ground with people. One of my very first veteran people on my team, and he was in like his 50s, but he loved throwing darts. So I just went and throw darts with him, like in my first month of being his leader. And I didn't give two craps about darts. Like, it didn't enhance me, didn't anything, but just reaching your arm across the aisle. I think sometimes as leaders, we think we're in a position, so they should have to come across the aisle. And it's like, no, if you're a servant leader, then it's about them first, and get over yourself and find that common ground and figure out how you can help them.
Absolutely. It's so important when you're building relationships to show through actions that you care about people. It can't just be your words. And so things like shooting darts with people, if that's what they're interested in, I imagine you can't help but build relationships, and they feel better about you as their leader when they see you doing those things. What were some other things that you've learned as a young leader and having a team that you said literally everybody's older than you are? What have been some of those challenges now moving into the regional leader?
I think the first and foremost is you got to continue to develop yourself. Eric Thomas, ET, we all know, the motivational speaker, and he was talking about, like, you owe it to yourself to constantly improve. You owe it to yourself to always be developing, to getting better, all of those things. And if you're going to lead a team, you have to constantly add value to them. And so that first starts with yourself. Like, are you constantly getting better and learning and growing? Because think about, if you lead a team, I'm going on my second year leading this team now. If I had the same message today that I had when I first started 2 years ago, it's going to start to fall on deaf ears. But if I constantly am bringing new value to them, if I'm constantly improving myself, rising tide lifts all boats. It's just going to continue with that. So I think that was one of the main things. The other thing is titles don't matter. Like, I went to college where they were talking about, like, get to this role and move up the ladder of this and do all this. And although I learned a lot from college, I think that's one thing they didn't talk about a lot was leadership and leadership development. And titles literally mean nothing. Like, people care about the fact that you care about them before they ever care about what you know. And so I maybe lead from a different standpoint. I think, like, I don't think anybody's ever accused me of being like the warm and fuzzy leader. Like, I'm not a let's hug it out type of leader. I feel like I lead through, and I found this out for myself because I kept trying to be somebody else, or I kept trying to be this leader that I knew. And, you take tactical things from each of them, but I found out myself as a leader, the best way that I lead is leading people to success, leading people through wins, leading through the challenges, and how do I overcome those obstacles versus being a rah-rah cheerleader or a warm and fuzzy leader. Like, that's not me. It's, here's these tactical things. Here's the things that we need to get over these hurdles, and here's how we can get through it. And when you have that true partner of yours, I always talk about a true partnership, especially with my districts. Like, I want to be that partner with you to where when something happens or we have success, like we push through it together. It wasn't like I just marched orders or I just tell you what to do type of thing.
So Nolan, you mentioned that you found out who your kind of true self was and your natural style as a leader. Talk a little bit about that time where you were trying to be somebody else or something that you weren't, and what were the signals that wasn't working, and how did you know? And then how did you make that pivot?
Yeah, I think one of the things is I came into an organization when I first got into leadership that my leader at the time, she had been there for a minute. Like, she already had that buy-in and stuff. And so I automatically, when I got in that seat, I guess, thought that they just bought in because it was my name on the building or it was my title or whatever it may be. And so I started saying, here's how things are going to go, or here's what I know has worked. And I thought just because people had seen maybe myself be successful in that role that they were in, that they were just gonna be like, all right, he did that. He's saying this is what got him there and I'm going to do that. And I didn't pause to take the time to build a true relationship with them, which has always been how I've led, which has always been who I am, like build a relationship first and then talk about everything else. And so I kind of tried to jump a few steps, if I'm being honest. And I've made this very clear. I didn't get to know the people first. Like I talked about when I first became a district, I got to know the people before I talked about tactics. And when I got into this role, I tried worrying about the tactics and tried shortchanging the relationship part. When I started to build true relationships and they truly knew I cared about them and their success, the results started taking care of themselves. They started having more buy-in. They started following the process more. And so you just got to stop and pause and know the person first before you get into the processes and the tactics.
That's so good. I love that you were trying to do something that kind of the opposite of what was already successful when you were the district coordinator, and you changed that when you went to regional and found out that that didn't work, went back to what you were doing that got you there. And then that's brought some success. That's so good. Now, I want to dive into some sales questions, and we'll do that right after this short break on the Clarity Advisor Show.
Is your business where you want it to be or on track to get there? Clarity Advisors helps business leaders improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success. We specialize in helping you streamline your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Call or text Ken at 616-822-2998 to have a complimentary 12-minute call to see what some clarity could do for you.
And welcome back to the Clarity Advisor Show. We're talking with Nolan King. Nolan, talk a little bit about sales. Leading a sales team is always challenging, and you've got, 30, 40 people, not all of them direct to you, but they're all in sales. So what are some of the things that you've learned that worked for you selling, and now that you've been able to train and teach and coach to help your team?
Yeah, I'd say a few things. Number one, I guess just personally that I've portrayed to my team is, in sales, it's a lot about mindset. Like there's the tactical stuff, don't get me wrong. But for myself, I didn't start having this kind of success I wanted until I started being a student. And like I talked about being a sponge, but also started developing, who I am as an entrepreneur, who I am as a salesperson, the processes that work for me, that don't work for me. But the main one is like in sales, if you don't have the ability to look yourself in the mirror and like just be raw and honest and true, you're not going to get very far, because it has a way of teaching you about yourself and developing you as a person just as much as it does anything else, in my opinion. And so that's something we're big on, is developing people, not just developing processes, like developing people to where they can implement the processes and make the sales and achieve what they want to. And then as far as leadership goes, I've got 40 different personalities, 40 different people who have 40 different goals. If you don't make it about each and every one of them and their why they want to do what they want to do and the way that they operate, and you just try to lay out blanket things, in my opinion, you're not going to get the most out of those people. And you may have a hamster wheel where you have maybe a sales organization, you're always having to bring in new people and this and that. But if you like truly just take the time to sit down and be like, what do you want? Why do you want it? How do you learn best? Like, again, get to know those people and make it about them. Then they will start having the kind of success they want, because every person's different, right? What works for me may not work for you. I think I can add value to you and maybe the sales process that worked for me. But if you try to create robots, they're not going to be the most successful, because sales is all about communication. Sales is all about relationships. So if you're disingenuous with them about you truly caring about them, or if you try to box them in, then when they go to have a conversation with somebody else, it's going to come off as disingenuous, and they're not going to get the results they want.
Brother, you are an old soul. That is so good. That's such timeless wisdom right there. For you to have that and be pouring into your team like that, it's so good. I love that. So let's get tactical for just a second. So as a sales leader, are you having sales meetings? Are you guys role playing? What metrics do you have? Just give us some little snapshot of some of the things that specifically you're doing with the team.
Yeah, role play for sure, because I'd rather them be uncomfortable in a safe environment, if you will, before throwing them out to the scary world of sales, which is just literally talking to people. But when it comes to that, yes, role playing is a huge thing. I do have sales meetings with my team. We have recognition meetings, we have big kickoff meetings, we have vision casting and goal setting meetings. So a lot of that, some of the metrics that we measure, nothing starts in sales without, actually putting the calls in or making the drops or running the meetings. So I think in that thing I was in last Friday, it said, nobody ever planned their way into success. Like, it's great and all to have a plan, but what action steps are you taking? So in our world, either pulling a door, talking to a business, it's picking up the phone and talking to a company. It's how many meetings are you setting? How many meetings do you need to run to turn into a new group? How many employees do you need to educate to reach these sales marks? And it's really, you talk about like why I was successful. Like, I'm not like this person that can like reinvent the wheel and have like the greatest idea. But if somebody lays out a roadmap for me and says, here's the tracks to run on, and if you do this, you get this, I can go execute a plan. So that's what I try to do for our team, is keep it super simple. Like, hey, you said, again, your goal, you want this and why you want it. And here's what that goal came out to. And let's backtrack that into everything that goes into our sales process. And then we just have to put pressure on the process, not on the person. You already laid out the process for them.
Pressure on the process, not the person. That's something to write down. That's a great phrase right there. So we've talked about being a young leader, and we've talked about the challenges of being a sales leader. Let's talk about that volunteer army and how you bring people in and recruit people to your team. So how do you go about that? And maybe you can tie in the fact that you're recruiting people to a sales position to be led by a young leader. So how does that go? And what are some things that you're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, and I think it's no different in an interview, is figuring out somebody's why. And sometimes they're not aligned in what they want and why they want to do it. And they're not willing to put in the work to reach the level of success with us. But, it's the same traditional model. So we're lead sourcing the same way, the Indeeds, the job postings, we're running interviews. I generally run a group interview first where it's more informational. And then from there, from what you've heard, if this is something you could see yourself doing, then let's meet one-on-one and have that conversation and dive deeper into it. So we're sourcing, we're interviewing the same old way into a sales position, but it's different in today's world. I think when I started first interviewing 2-3 years ago, the conversation was a lot different. What do they call it? The big resignation. They talk about like people silently walking away, like not putting in formal resignations. And I think it's because people just didn't take the time to care or learn or listen to what those people's goals are. So in ours, it's what do you want? Why do you want it? Here's how Aflac can be that vehicle for you. And I always talk about it's a very entrepreneur-like role. And right now, entrepreneur is cool, right? Like, people are wanting to have startups and do this and that. So I always say, Aflac's the vehicle of entrepreneurship, but we have more of a franchise model where we give you the tools and the tactical resources and we help you get there. So it's a different conversation than it was 2 or 3 years ago, for sure.
Okay. That's really interesting about the great resignation and caring about people to keep them attracted. And I think you're right. I think entrepreneurship right now is very hot. It's a trendy thing. And to be able to tie together your model with a path toward entrepreneurship and let people think, the phrase I've heard is, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And so you've got that team around you, and you've got a leader like yourself to help coach and bring people along. That's good stuff. What lessons have you learned from trying to recruit people in the last couple of years? Have things changed, or has it been about the same as it's been your entire time?
I think people haven't changed. I think the way, and you talk about like, people resigning or whatever, like, I think the way that people should lead other people has changed for sure. Caring about them first, themselves second. But I would say people haven't changed, but something that I have learned for sure, like, I always want everybody to succeed. I always see the potential in other people, but I will say it comes apparent more, I guess, to myself now, maybe being around longer, of like, hey, it's just maybe not going to work out. And here's why. And I think we need to be honest with people, especially in my role in sales and entrepreneurship, like being honest with people. Like, if you go down, one of the things I used to say in my Friday meetings with some of my team when I was a district is like, hey, you said you wanted this, you said this was your goal. Here's what we just did is going to yield us. So we either got to change the goal, which I'm cool with, or we got to ramp it up. It's your business. You tell me what you want to do. So the conversation's just different, I guess. Explaining the why behind everything is super important now. Like, even if people don't agree with what you have to say, if you explain your thought process behind it and why you said it that way, again, even if they don't agree, they can at least understand and be empathetic with where you're coming from. So I don't think people have changed. I think how people approach people has changed, and the people who haven't adapted, I guess they're going to get left behind here in the next coming years.
Yeah, I agree. I believe that people haven't changed, and how to treat them well and what works is still the same as it's always been. It just seems like because people have more choices now. If you don't do it that way, kind of the right way, and care about people first, then it's just there's more places for people to go. And so they can leave. Whereas in the past, I think people felt, at least they felt like they had to stay regardless of how you were treating them.
Yeah,
And so
and look what we just talked about, like entrepreneurship being cool. Like the people who had to work for somebody for a job, like they have avenues with the internet now, with YouTube, with podcasting, like that they didn't have 2, 3, 4 years ago. So whereas somebody may have stuck with you because that was how they paid their bills, they've got more options now. So if they don't truly care about you and want to follow you, then they've got other doors that they can walk through.
yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on there. So you alluded to a little bit of your upbringing and parents and grandparents and the structure of your life early on. I know you played some baseball, even at the college level. How did being on a team and the household that you grew up in, how did those factors help you to lead? And what lessons did you learn being on teams and sports and being with your family that helped you launch your career as a leader?
Yeah, I think a few things. That was my first leadership. Like I talked about getting, I guess, into leadership in 2019. Like sports was my first form of leadership, if you will, and seeing how other people led. I think it gave me structure. I think it gave me directions. It taught me how to goal set, how to work hard for goals, like things that I still use to this day. Again, talk about great mentors like coaches, and even my dad was my coach, and we still talk about like the old times, if you will. But I think it just gave me structure and goal setting, and it gave me direction. I think a lot of young people today lack direction. Like they just sit there and play video games, maybe, or like just, talk to somebody over the phone. But when you have to interact with people and playing team sports, like I played basketball, I played football, I played baseball, like those are all team sports. Like I don't care how talented you are, you can't do it alone. So the sum of the parts is greater than the parts by themselves. That was a lesson taught early on. And again, you talk about caring for people. Just people caring about other people. Like I was around that very early in a family setting, and then I'd go to sports where they weren't necessarily my family, but they became a family. And when you foster that kind of environment, no matter if you're in sales or business or personal or professional, family's family. Like caring about people is caring about people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. And yeah, those are lessons that you can learn early and then launch in, because it works. Because yeah, people are people, whether that's a family or a team or a business. And so if you can get those lessons down pat and find what works and what doesn't, it can really move you quickly. And you're proving that. It's a great to see the story and how rapidly you've risen by following these principles that I would suggest are timeless principles. And like you had said, people don't change, but people didn't always treat people that way because they didn't have to. And now, as we're seeing, if you don't, people leave. But if you do, it still works and people will still stay with you. And your team's evidence of that as well. Well, listen, this has been so good. I know that and you had mentioned earlier that you need to keep learning and keep bringing and pouring into yourself so that you can have more to deliver to your team and pour into them so that your message doesn't get stale year after year. What are some things that you're consuming right now, whether that's books or podcasts, or what are you doing to grow you?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost is just the people around me, like asking them questions, and we have like team events and asking them questions and just hearing the way that they do things. And even if I don't necessarily agree with it, it's good to hear different perspectives and things. A book I just got done reading, Developing the Leader Within You, like anything John Maxwell's gold. I mean, you talk about timeless. That seminar or thing I went to last Friday was led by John Maxwell's type of people, if you will, live to lead. So I just attended that. I have a personal sales coach, which Ken, that's how we know each other.
Mhm.
Shout out to Joe. So I do meet with him biweekly, talk to him regularly. Obviously, I talk to Ashley, who's still a mentor. So just finding different books to read, I guess, but having a personal sales coach that's outside of my business. I think sometimes, like you can go down a narrow path if it's just somebody within your company. But when you get an outside perspective, it's so good. And then podcasts like these, definitely listen to podcasts. I spend a lot of time on the road, so I'm always looking for a new podcast that I can use on my what I call windshield time.
Yeah, absolutely. That the idea of the outside coach, I think, is really powerful, because if it's not somebody in your company, well, then
Yeah,
they have no reason to do anything except support you.
yeah.
They couldn't possibly have an ulterior motive. They couldn't possibly have a conflicting agenda. they're only there for you. And so
Yeah.
you get a different perspective, and you can really get somebody, if you get that right coach, who's there for you and can really elevate your game. So how did you get to the point that you decided you needed a coach or wanted a coach?
Yeah, so I've been getting, I've been told for a long time you should have a business coach, you need to invest, and I never just found the right fit. If I'm being honest, I never wanted to be any of the people, and this is no disrespect even to the listener. I never wanted to be like the people that wanted me to have them hired as my sales coach. I never saw them and was like, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't go through that to reach where he would. And Joe was the first person I ever met. Got introduced to him by a friend, where I said, like, this dude's crazy. Like, I would commit myself and work harder than just about anybody I've ever met in my entire life. I would not work harder than this dude. Like, he eats, sleeps, breathes it. But he also had a unique style. Like, something about him was just like, he is a former sports coach. So he brought that flair, but he also had the sales background. He led a volunteer army. So I think it's just about fit. I always knew I needed one. I just needed to find the right one that's a fit for me. And when I say fit, I don't mean like the one that gives you the warm and fuzzies and agrees with everything you say, like the one that'll call you out when it's not going that way and give you the perspective that you seek to improve. If the whole point of having a sales coach is to improve, it's not to like have somebody validate what you think. So I think sometimes we can go wrong with that, but I love the sports background from him, and it just finally was the right fit of somebody that I believed in and I knew could help me get to where I wanted to go.
Absolutely. And Joe is all those things. He definitely is. He has an opinion, and he's not afraid to share it. He's not afraid to call you out, but he's also right there encouraging you. Nobody's a bigger cheerleader of people that he works with than Joe. He's happy to encourage you and loves to see others succeed, and gets a lot of value for himself get a lot of satisfaction from seeing the people he coaches succeed and do well. And so, yeah, great choice. It's interesting how things work out. And yeah, that's how you and I connected. So,
Absolutely.
Well, good. Well, Nolan, who would be somebody who should reach out to you, and how would they best contact you?
Yeah. So I guess all about, I'm sure you have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners that are on there. Like, we didn't even get into like what Aflac's value prop, if you will, what we do for companies and what we do for employees. So if you've got a business that has employees, we're an employee benefits company, but we provide solutions for business owners. So if you're a business owner looking to make a difference in your business to increase your bottom line, we talked about the hiring and the hiring, the hamster wheel, if you will. If you're looking for a solution to help with that, we could be a good fit. So business owners, reach out. Employees who know about Aflac, reach out. I can help you there. And then if you're a professional or looking to get into professional and sales and entrepreneurship and stuff, we have some career opportunities here in Central Florida for people who live there. And Aflac's a big family. I talked about family. I know people across the country. So if you're looking for a career change, you think Aflac or sales might be good for you, reach out and connect that way as well. So how you contact me, by phone. I'm big. I don't have an office phone. Like, I had one of my agents text me the other day, hey, can you send me the office phone number? I'm like, what's that? Just give them my cell phone. What do they need? Yeah. So again, personal touch, just be a person, be a human. 812-821-7913. Call or text. That's my cell, 812-821-7913. And then my email is just first name _ last name. So Nolan, Nolan _ King, King at us.aflac.com. So again, business owners, people looking to make a career change, those are the people that should be reaching out.
Fantastic. Well, Nolan, this has been a treat, a ton of wisdom. I'm so proud of you, so impressed, and appreciate the conversation, appreciate your time, and I'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
All right. Appreciate it, Ken. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And that brings us to the end of another Clarity Advisors show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisors show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.